Book 14, Chapter 13. Of War and Peace, Volume 4, by Leo Tolstoy, translated by Elmer Maude. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Book 14, Chapter 13. At midday on the 22nd of October, Pierre was going uphill along the muddy, slippery road, looking at his feet and at the roughness of the way. Occasionally he glanced at the familiar crowd around him and then again at his feet. The former and the latter were alike familiar and his own. The blue-gray bandy-legged dog ran merrily along the side of the road, sometimes in proof of its agility and self-satisfaction, lifting one hind leg and hopping along on three, and then again going on all four and rushing to bark at the crows that sat on the carrion. The dog was merrier and sleeker than it had been in Moscow. All around lay the flesh of different animals, from men to horses, in various stages of decomposition. And as the wolves were kept off by the passing men, the dog could eat all it wanted. It had been raining since morning, and had seemed as if at any moment it might cease and the sky clear, but after a short break it began raining harder than before. The saturated road no longer absorbed the water, which ran along the ruts in streams. Pierre walked along, looking from side to side, counting his steps in threes and reckoning them off on his fingers. Mentally addressing the rain, he repeated, now then, go on, pelt harder." It seemed to him that he was thinking of nothing, but far down and deep within him his soul was occupied with something important and comforting. This something was a most subtle spiritual deduction from a conversation with Karateev the day before. At their yesterday's halting-place, feeling chilly by a dying campfire, Pierre had got up and gone to the next one, which was burning better. There Platon Karateev was sitting covered up head and all with his greatcoat, as if it were a vestment, telling the soldiers in his effective and pleasant, though now feeble voice, a story Pierre knew. It was already past midnight, the hour when Karateev was usually free of his fever and particularly lively. When Pierre reached the fire and heard Platon's voice enfeebled by illness, and saw his pathetic face brightly lit up by the blaze, he felt a painful prick at his heart. His feeling of pity for this man frightened him, and he wished to go away, but there was no other fire, and Pierre sat down, trying not to look at Platon. "Well, how are you?" he asked. "How am I? If we grumble at sickness, God won't grant us death," replied Platon, and at once resumed the story he had begun. "And so, brother," he continued, with a smile on his pale, emaciated face and a particularly happy light in his eyes, "you see, brother." Pierre had long been familiar with that story. Karateev had told it to him alone some half-dozen times, and always with a specially joyful emotion. But well as he knew it, Pierre now listened to that tale as to something new, and the quiet rapture Karateev evidently felt as he told it communicated itself also to Pierre. The story was of an old merchant who lived a good and God-fearing life with his family, and who went once to the Nizhny Fair with a companion, a rich merchant. Having put up at an inn, they both went to sleep, and next morning his companion was found robbed with his throat cut. A blood-stained knife was found under the old merchant's pillow. He was tried, knouted, and his nostrils having been torn off, all in due form, as Karateev put it, he was sent to hard labor in Siberia. And so, brother, it was at this point that Pierre came up. 10 years or more passed by. The old man was living as a convict, submitting as he should and doing no wrong. Only he prayed to God for death. Well, one night the convicts were gathered just as we are, with the old man among them. And they began telling what each was suffering for, and how they had sinned against God. One told how he had taken a life, another had taken 2, a third had set a house on fire, while another had simply been a vagrant and had done nothing. So they asked the old man, "What are you being punished for, Daddy?" "I, my dear brothers," said he, "am being punished for my own and other men's sins. But I have not killed anyone or taken anything that was not mine, but have only helped my poor brothers. I was a merchant, my dear brothers, and had much property." And he went on to tell them all about it in due order. "I don't grieve for myself," he says. "God, it seems, has chastened me. Only I am sorry for my old wife and the children." And the old man began to weep. Now it happened that in the group was the very man who had killed the other merchant. "Where did it happen, Daddy?" he said. "When and in what month?" He asked all about it, and his heart began to ache. So he comes up to the old man like this, and falls down at his feet. "You are perishing because of me, Daddy," he says. "It's quite true, lads, that this man," he says, "is being tortured innocently and for nothing. I," he says, "did that deed, and I put the knife under your head while you were asleep. Forgive me, Daddy," he says, "for Christ's sake." Karateev paused, smiling joyously as he gazed into the fire, and he drew the logs together. And the old man said, "God will forgive you. We are all sinners in His sight. I suffer for my own sins." And he wept bitter tears. Well, what do you think, dear friends? Karateev continued, his face brightening more and more with a rapturous smile, as if what he now had to tell contained the chief charm and the whole meaning of his story. "What do you think, dear fellows? That murderer confessed to the authorities. 'I have taken 6 lives,' he says. He was a great sinner. But what I'm most sorry for is this old man. Don't let him suffer because of me.' So he confessed, and it was all written down and the paper sent off in due form. The place was a long way off, and while they were judging, what with one thing and another, filling in the papers all in due form, the authorities, I mean, time passed. The affair reached the Tsar. After a while the Tsar's decree came, to set the merchant free and give him a compensation that had been awarded. The paper arrived, and they began to look for the old man. Where is the old man who has been suffering innocently and in vain? A paper has come from the Tsar. So they began looking for him." Here Karateev's lower jaw trembled. "But God had already forgiven him. He was dead. That's how it was, dear fellows." Karateev concluded, and sat for a long time silent, gazing before him with a smile. And Pierre's soul was dimly but joyfully filled, not by the story itself, but by its mysterious significance, by the rapturous joy that lit up Karateev's face as he told it, and the mystic significance of that joy. End of Book 14, Chapter 13.